Hello everybody, I'm Ron, W7DOA, Whiskey 7 Delta Oscar Alpha. And in this video, we're going to talk about where to get the information that it takes to program a DMR radio. In the earlier video, we talked about time slots and color codes and all that sort of thing. So where do we actually get this information to program our radios effectively? There's several different places that we can do this. One of them is Repeater Book, and we will actually go to repeaterbook.com over here. And down here we can search for, in this area down here, we can search for North American repeaters. I'm in Montana, so I'm in North America. You could search for your place in the world. I'm going to have to put on my glasses here. And we're going to search in Montana. And then we are going to feature DMR. So these are all of the repeaters in the state of Montana that have DMR on them. There's one in Great Falls, there's one in Dillon, one in Helena, two in Helena, Lookout Pass, Big Fork, Eureka, and then we see the frequencies over here. There's only a couple 2-meter ones. Most of them are 70 centimeters. So we can look at this one here in Dillon. It's 444.100. It is a plus 5 megahertz offset. So we would program it at 449.100 as the transmit frequency, and it has a color code of 2. We click on that 444.100 link, and it tells us a little bit more information about where that repeater is, what talk groups are static on which time slots. So this is one place where we can get some information to program into our radios. There is another place. If we go to the Brandmeister dashboard, there is another place there that we can get information. It takes a bit of working to get through, but let's go back to Repeater Book here for just a second. We're going to go North American repeaters down here on the left side. We're going to go back to Montana. Going to go to DMR again. And we're going to get back to this Dillon Badger Pass one. Because this will give us some information, hopefully, that will help us. The DMR ID right here, that's going to be handy over in the Brandmeister network, because we can go to repeaters, and that ID on the the Repeater Book page was 313004. So over here in the search bar, we're going to search for 313004. And there is the repeater. We click on it, and it brings up a whole bunch of information about this repeater. Now, the cool thing about this is it will tell us where it is on the map. We can zoom in and out on that map, and we can decide whether or not that's a repeater that will work for us. This is information that is coming directly from the repeater and updated in real time. So this tells us where it's at, Tells us what kind of hardware it is. Tells us that slots 1 and 2 are linked to the Brandmeister network. The Brandmeister master server is running on 3102. It tells us what the frequencies are. So the repeater transmits on 444.100. That means we put that in as our receive frequency. So just a little bit you got to keep in mind there. Color code 2. Now over here on repeater book, it told us that 3130, the Montana statewide talk group, is on time slot 1, and 31301 is on time slot 2, or MPRG. If we actually look at the Brandmeister dashboard, we'll see that 3130 is on time slot 1, 31304 is also on time slot 1, and then there's a cluster there as well. And that's where that, if we were to put in talk group 8, it would talk to all of those at the same time. Then on time slot 2 is 31301. They used to have some other ones on there, Bozeman, Gallatin Valley, but it looks like they've taken those out. So this is real-time information. This is exactly what's on that repeater right now. So this is a little bit better place to get accurate information. The other place that you might look is, does the repeaters in your local area, are they controlled by a group of individuals that own and control those, and do those individuals have a website with information on it? So for instance, DMR Montana.net is a website that has all of this information on it. If we go to site radio site data and then go down to the Dillon Badger Pass repeater, these are the this is the repeater that that we've been talking about. Still the same 444.100, 5 megahertz offset, color code 2, DMR radio ID, the equipment, blah, 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 blah. They talk about here about static talk groups, 3130 on time slot 1, 31302, which is MPRG 2, and 31303, which is Bozeman, Gallatin Valley, and the 8 cluster. And then time slot 2 is 31301. So this is a website that has to be updated repeatedly, continually, whereas this is real-time information that is happening on that repeater right now. So anyway, there's some ideas there that you could use to program your radio. So let's go ahead and get some of this information. Oh, I just threw my pen on the floor. Hold on one second. All right, we're back. So the repeater transmits on 444.100. That we will put in as our receive frequency. It is a +5 megahertz shift, so we will transmit at 449.100, and it has a color code of 2. So that's a good information to have. And then we see down here, time slot 1 has 3130. I can't even write. 3130 Montana statewide. 31302, which is MPRG2. That's kind of a spillover to MPRG1. It has 31301, which is Bozeman, Gallatin Valley. We just shorten that up to BGV. And then we have 8 cluster. And then on time slot 2, it is 31301, which is MPRG1. And then when we look down at the dynamic groups underneath that, it says time slot 1, all Brandmeister talk groups. So anything that is in this list here can be used. Actually, let's do this. Any of these in this list can be used on that repeater, but in a dynamic situation where we talked about that before. You program a channel up in your radio with that talk group on it, and when you press the push to talk button, then it activates that talk group on that repeater for about 10 to 15 minutes after the last time it hears you push to talk. So any of these talk groups here are available for you to use on that repeater. However, on time slot 2 it says please do not use time slot 2 for dynamic talk groups. So what that's telling us is that the only talk group that this repeater owner wants on time slot 2 is MPRG1. Now, here's a little caveat that we need to think about when we're programming our radio. Time slot 1 says all Brandmeister talk groups can be dynamic on that talk group. If we were to program MPRG1 that is normally on time slot 2, if we were to program that in a time slot 1 slot, it would go dynamic on time slot 1. At the same time, that repeater is also requesting that same traffic static on time slot 2, and so effectively what you would be doing is double broadcasting continually all of the information on both time slot 1, which would be dynamic, and time slot 2, which would be static. So it's very important that we get our time slots correct with the way the repeater owner has it set up and requests us to use it. So it's very important, and what we see a lot is somebody will have a time slot programmed wrong in their radio, and so they go, well, I can only hear one side of the conversation or the other side of the conversation. So anyway, we have back to the video that we're doing here. We now have the frequency, we have the color code, we have a location of where this is, so we can go, yeah, there's a reasonable expectation that I can hit this. Just so you know, this repeater is about 40 miles from where I am sitting right now. It's 40 miles, but it's also a couple thousand feet above me, and I have a almost perfect clear line of sight to that mountaintop. So even though it's 40 miles away from me, I have a reasonable expectation that I can hit that repeater with a handheld and a standard antenna. We will test that out when we get to the programming section. We see that this particular repeater is single mode. It's DMR only. Does not have any other digital or analog capabilities to it. And we see how we should program our static talk groups and which time slot we should put our dynamic talk groups on. And then there's some other information. We have that information here. We have it on the Brandmeister dashboard. And as we saw before, we have some limited information on repeater book. So what I would do if I were looking for, let's say I'm going to travel to Salt Lake, and so I would look up a repeater in Salt Lake. I would pick the Utah state. I would scroll down. I would pick DMR right here in this area. And now I will see all of the DMR repeaters in Utah. West Jordan, Salt Lake. Let's say that one will work. So I have this frequency. I'm going to click on it and open up that specific repeater. and that specific repeater will tell me where it is on the map, and then I have a reasonable expectation that from inside the city limits of Salt Lake I should be able to hit it. It also tells me what the DMR ID is, so I am going to copy that with a right mouse click, and I will select copy. I will go over to the Brandmeister dashboard, and I will paste in the search bar that repeater. And there it is, Salt Lake N6DVZ. And now I have real-time information from that repeater, exactly what the frequency is, what the color code is, and which time slots are static. And it looks like this says slots 1 and 2 are linked, so that's handy. And then it says that the time slot 2 just has those two on it, SNARS, Reno, Tahoe, and Utah, which is the Utah statewide talk group. Those are the two on there. This actually shifts the location a little bit to the north side of Salt Lake City, which I'm not really sure. It shows that it's a Motorola XPR 8400, so it is actually a repeater. It is not a hotspot. And that would be the information that I would then program into my radio. So that's how I would get good, valuable information about what repeater I would be using. So now we got the information that we can start programming with. In the next video, we will actually dig into the software for the Anytone 878. The software looks very similar to the Anytone 578, and it will give you the basics so that as you dig into the software for your TYT or your MD380 or whatever other DMR radio you have, you will be able to begin to understand what that stuff is. Again, my name is Ron, W7DOA, and until the next video, 7-3.